occurs when attack or abandonment triggers a fight or flight response so intensely that a person can't turn it off when the threat is over. And so they stay in this sort of hyper-adrenalized state. So we were originally created, human beings, that we would have an adrenalized state when we needed to jump into action. We could only do them in short bursts, and then we would have to go into a resting state, right? Well, the problem is that in our modern times, we don't have that same reality, but we still have the same instinct, the same capability. And now we live in a situation where perhaps that threat, the thing that is the threat, the perceived threat, is there all the time, or comes home every night at 5 o'clock, or and so you find that you are living in a chronic state of this adrenalized state. One of the biggest distinctions between PTSD and C-PTSD is that PTSD can happen from a one-time occurrence. It can be one event, and it's always a known event. So, it is the rape, the kidnapping, the war that you were in. So PTSD can come from things like a car accident, and then you'll have the reaction when something happens that reminds you of that accident or that event. In CPTSD, the big culprit is childhood neglect, and so it's an unknown experience, and it's repeated and prolonged, diffuse trauma. It'll be stress from various things that are neglected, and those things that are neglected are like self-esteem, self-compassion, learning to champion oneself, stand up for oneself, building a strong identity, capacity for drawing comfort from relationships, an ability to relax, a capacity for self-expression, willpower, motivation, self-care, peace of mind, a belief that life is a gift, self-esteem, and self-confidence. Those are some of the things that get neglected. And so a person will grow up into adulthood with these things. They're undeveloped. And the most common problems are that there'll be emotional flashbacks and toxic shame, self-abandonment, a very strong inner critic, and social anxiety. Feelings of loneliness and abandonment, fragile self-esteem, relationship difficulties, mood swings, disassociation, a hair trigger, fight or flight response, feelings of helplessness or hopelessness, suicidal ideation, inaccurate perceptions of danger, inappropriate feelings of guilt or shame, and idealization or inaccurate interpretation of perpetrator's behavior. So you can see that this is completely debilitating. And if a person, I'm thinking of my son, and I'm thinking, we were talking about his drug addiction, but heaven's sakes, that was much the lesser problem compared to the CPTSD that he was dealing with. But many of us that suffer CPTSD are unaware of it, and of course we know about the drug addiction because we can see that. So we know that's the thing that's manifesting, and it may be that we also can identify the depression, we can identify the anxiety, we can talk about all these symptoms, but the cause still it remains so vague and so hard to identify. And so, those who have realized that they suffer from the symptoms will deny that they were abused in childhood. And that certainly was me. And that's practically everybody for a while, at least while they're in the situation where they have to survive it. And then later, when it's safe to know it, they can sometimes know it. But I was in denial for the longest time, really the longest time. And emotional neglect, and especially because I didn't know that emotional neglect was abuse. I didn't know that because I was not allowed to express all the feelings, sadness, anger, I wasn't allowed to have needs in childhood. I wasn't really allowed to be really anything but happy and fine. I wasn't allowed to be scared or sick or needy or sad or afraid or angry or anything. Anything that required my parents to do something. Never in the midst of any of this would I ever have admitted that I was abused. It took me it took me a while, even after I had been completely estranged from everyone, for me to even come to terms with that. So, and that's common. CPTSD really is the bigger point of why I'm even here versus just talking about narcissists and all of that. I mean, it's helpful to identify them. It's helpful to get this into a mainstream uh, vernacular that we can all agree on and identify, and so we can protect ourselves. But the whole goal of it is to put an end to CPTSD, because it that is what I consider. If if someone were to ask me what to put on my son's death certificate as cause of death, I would say CPTSD was his cause of death. And I could go further to say as caused by, trauma and abuse, you know, in his childhood. He could get clean, he could be off the drugs, but something kept pulling him back. And it was the fact that it was CPTSD that kept pulling him back. It made life unbearable for him, and he had yet to heal it. Retrain yourself in all the areas that were neglected in that list of neglected areas. And that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's not any kind of quick fix. It's going back and healing all those neglected things. The self-compassion is the one that I especially focus on here on my channel. It comes up for me again and again. When my son died, what just was so obvious in its absence was compassion from my family. It was so obviously missing that even I was forced to see it. It was just like, and this even after years and years and years of neglect. Um, Still, something like this happens, and I heard from all kinds of people that I hadn't heard from in all those years, but my own family just was so stuck in their sickness that they couldn't do it. They could not offer me compassion because it was too threatening for them. And well, because they don't do that because they're narcissists, you know, and they certainly didn't take any responsibility. So that, and so the compounding of the CPTSD just continues to happen as long as you're around these people. And of course, I I hadn't I hadn't gotten my sons away from them. I think that if we had some time, things would have gotten better because he would have gotten older and more mature, and we would have built more distance between us and them, and he would have had other things going on. But um, being here surrounded by the perpetrators and the abusers, it was, he hadn't healed his CPTSD, hadn't begun to. And so even if he could heal the addiction, the cause of it that brought him into using in the first place was still there, just as strong a pull as ever. This is what really is the key, the core of why this is all a problem. Why there's even any point in us talking about narcissistic abuse and all that is because of CPTSD, is because it causes this debilitating illness. All right, thanks a lot, you guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.